everyone. I'm Rochelle Chernowski. This is Shell Point Today for Thursday, April 17th. On today's show, we'll hear from Dr. William Evans about an upcoming presentation on urological issues. We'll also meet Bill and Teddy Beard, who ran an antique store out of their beautiful brick home in Herman, Missouri, and they also keep an impressive collection in their home right here at Shell Point. But first, we have a lot going on today. Are you ready if a hurricane should come our way? The storm season is upon us, and today is the day for the Hurricane Seminar. To help you plan ahead and learn about the steps that Shell Point will take to secure your safety in the event of a hurricane, plan to attend today from 10:30 a.m. until noon at the Village Church. The information presented will be extremely valuable in the event we have to deal with a big storm this season. Another source of valuable information is the Academy of Lifelong Learning. Registration for the summer semester starts today. Earlier this week, you should have received in your mailbox the brochure listing all the class offerings for this session. It is also available on shellpoint.net. Take a look and then sign up for the ones you like starting today. One more area where knowledge is power is with your computer. There are a lot of problems that can arise as you enjoy the many benefits of using the internet. Mike Peterson from Computer Medics will be here today to explain the best practices to stay safe while online. He will talk about virus and malware protection, firewalls, internet scams, password rules, and backing up your computer. The presentation is today at 2:15 p.m. in the Manatee Room on the island. Now from computer wellness, we move to personal wellness. Today there will be a LifeQuest informational forum. This is for anyone who is interested in getting started with LifeQuest. Mary Franklin, Resort Services and Wellness Manager, will make the presentation at 9:15 a.m. in the Social Center on the island. One aspect of LifeQuest is the physical dimension of wellness. Now, urology is not exactly a subject most of us care to chat about in the idle conversation hours. It can be embarrassing, of course, but it's a fact of life that, as we age, many of us have to deal with. There is no need to suffer in silence, however, because there is help available. Dr. William Evans from Southwest Florida Urologic Associates is coming to Shell Point on Thursday, April 24th to make a presentation. He will be covering many kinds of urology issues and will take plenty of time to answer your questions. Mary Franklin is here now with Dr. Evans to give you a preview.
On Thursday, April 24th, in the Social Center at 1:15 p.m., I hope you join Dr. Evans for an important topic, common urological issues. Dr. Evans has been in Southwest Florida for over 30 years, and he is a co-founder of the Southwest Florida Urologic Associates. And we are so pleased to have you here. Thank you for coming.
Thank you so much for having me.
Tell us a little bit about you. I know you've been down here for a really long time, but you're an Ohio boy?
I am. I'm from Cincinnati, born and raised there. I went to school in Ohio, went to College of Worcester in Ohio, and went back to Cincinnati to medical school. Went to UC Medical School, and then went on and did all my postgraduate training in general surgery and urology at Wake Forest in Winston-Salem, North Carolina. And then I came to Florida after that.
Great. Well, you've been here for quite a long time. You have a great reputation. You have some ties here to Shell Point with your parents and knowing a lot of the doctors.
Yes, I've had ties with Shell Point for many, many years. Our practices work closely with Shell Point over the years. We've had very good working relationship with all the physicians here. Some of them have actually retired since then, but we've had a very good working relationship. We've seen many, many residents at Shell Point, and my parents were residents here. They unfortunately both have passed away, but they spent almost 5 years here.
All right.
So I'm very familiar with Shell Point.
You know, and you know our crowd. So my next question is, what are the top 3 urological issues that you see in your office with this age group, with the senior population?
Well, I would say probably number one would be urinary issues, urinary incontinence issues. That's probably number one. Very, very common problem in this age group of patients. It's predominantly women, predominantly females, but not exclusively. We do a lot of issues with men as well.
Okay.
And there are definitely things that we can do to help patients, and there aren't that many patients who can't be helped by something.
Okay.
It's not the same answer for each patient.
Right.
Number two, I would guess probably would be urinary tract infection issues. And interestingly, there in many cases, and particularly in women, it can be a connection between incontinence and infection.
Right.
And so, you know, if you are a female here and are wearing pads or are incontinent or having infections, there may be a relationship between the two, and you know, you should see us about this so that we can address it.
Right.
I would say number three would probably be urologic cancer. Okay, and that again is for both men and women. And that involves blood in the urine, is evaluating you, screening for that. It involves PSA testing in men.
Right.
Urine testing, specific urine testing in both men and women. Bladder cancer is an issue. So we deal with a very broad range of issues in our practice.
And everybody should attend this session because we all have to go, right? So, but it would be a great presentation to get the knowledge, even if you're not dealing with an issue right now.
Absolutely. I think you're always better off if you're armed with information and some understanding of what potential things can happen to you and what you should look for. And if you have concerns or problems, then you don't necessarily have to go to your family doctor. You can come directly to us to see us, and we are taking new patients every day.
Okay, well that's great. We look forward to your presentation because you also said that you're going to cover questions and answers. Absolutely.
I always want to be able to field questions from the audience, from patients that they're concerned about, and it's something that I enjoy doing, and I hope that people will find it interesting and helpful.
And you're going to make this a nice, safe environment. So even though there's ladies and men in there, everybody should feel comfortable being in the same room and talking about these issues.
You know, one thing about medicine that's changed dramatically is the openness of feeling like you can discuss your issues.
Right.
These things are not in the closet anymore. You do not need to be embarrassed about issues that you have. We all have them.
Right.
We all have issues. So we very much encourage people to come and talk.
And learn from each other.
Correct.
Right? Okay. Well, this talk will take place on Thursday, April 24th in the Social Center at 1:15 p.m. If you would like to come hear Dr. Evans speak, you can sign up at either of the service desks. I'm Mary Franklin with the Health Connection. Make it a happy and healthy day.
Here on SPTV, we've often shown you stories about interesting collections and items that have fascinating histories. But there's one couple here who knows better than any other what makes an interesting antique, because they used to run an antique store out of their home. Bill and Teddy Beard maintained a beautiful brick home in Hermann, Missouri, with a wine cellar they converted to an antique store. And when they moved to Shell Point, only their most prized possessions came with them. Let's learn more about their life in antiques.
We grew up not too far apart and attended the same high school. And we were aware of each other in high school, but I was a year older.
Much older.
So you know how that goes, you know. Our 64th coming up on June 5th, 1948. And that's a fair piece of time. All these years up to then, we really both enjoyed antiques very much. And it all started when we were newlyweds and poor, and we furnished our apartment with
this kind of early
attics, you know, and that sort of thing.
When we were first married and started antiquing, the only thing I could afford would be candlesticks, because I could find them, you know, $12 was tops, you know. But so we had lots and lots of brass candlesticks, and now our daughters have candlesticks all over the place. Their mantles are filled with brass candlesticks.
At age 50, we sat down and said, what are we going to do if we do retire? You know, well, antiques sounded like a good thing to do. So we probably drove every road in 5 counties around Kansas City trying to find the place. We stumbled into Hermann, Missouri, which was a little German town on the Missouri River, 60 miles west of St. Louis. It looks like the Rhine Valley, and this is exactly why they decided to settle.
It really does, because when we were in Germany, we'd come around the bend and we'd see these little towns. You see, as Hermann. Yeah. It just looks like home.
Right. A beautiful little town that was so poor during the Depression and all that they couldn't tear any of the good stuff down and build over it. And so we found a house there.
And we looked up on this hill and said, look at that. This big brick house.
Nothing was ever done to this house, which was perfect. A restorer's dream.
When we bought it, there wasn't even a driveway up there. You just had to kind of plow through the tall grass to get up there. Mm-hmm. And there was no plumbing, no bathrooms, no kitchen really, no running water.
Electric was one bulb in what we called the kitchen. And I don't know what they used.
And one outlet in the room that we decided was the dining room.
We did a survey down there years ago, but we uncovered 60 wineries within a couple of miles in Hermann, just a very limited area. This wine cellar, they all grew grapes and they all made wine. For them to build this house, they would want a fairly decent wine cellar. And the guy that built the house, his occupation was making brick. Was it a brick house with this wonderful brick wine cellar? We were primarily furniture and some smalls, but and quilts and things like that. But primarily mid-19th century handmade furniture. The younger generation, they didn't want any of that stuff because it was old stuff and they grew up with it.
They wanted new stuff.
New stuff. But being good Germans, they never threw anything away. They put it up in the barn or in a shed or something, And so the auctions down there were wonderful. I'd come home with my pickup truck just bulging, tying stuff on.
And then a friend would come and bring the rest of the stuff. It was great. It was really great.
This is an interesting piece to me. I think I'm reasonably sure that it's American. I did a lot of research on it, and it's oak, and it's a small blanket box, a hand-carved front. And there's 2 panels down here that have the date 1709, and there's a wonderful mechanism. The lock is what they call a clam shell lock, and it's very interesting to me.
And then this was Bill's aunt. It's all burled.
A burl box.
It's I don't know if you can see all the burl, and every now and then it has a secret drawer down here, and when it storms, this drawer pops out, and we'll come home and it'll just be open.
One of the things that's so unique about it is the hinge. That isn't a metal hinge somebody put on it. It's hand carved hinge. History of pie safes is prior to refrigeration or anything like that. If you would bake a bunch of pies, if you just put them on the windowsill, the flies get them, And so they would put them in a pie safe to keep the flies off, and still the air circulates because of the punched tin. And that's the key to that. That's a thread that came out of a store. They'd have it up on the counter, and they stored thread in it. It says George A. Clark's only new thread, O-N-T. They weren't going to try to sell you old thread where they took something apart and wound it around something, This is new thread, and it's cotton spools, Clark was a sole agent, and he also sold needles in that. And the merchant, it would come out of a retail store of some kind, general store probably, and they would sell the thread out of that. And it's kind of hard to find them with all this stuff on them still. This was used in, women would use it in weaving, in winding a skein of yarn.
As the yarn would come off the wheels, they would...
Off the spinning wheel, and they would wind it up on one of these. And I don't know why they call them nitty-nutties, but that's what they were.
Well, they'd sing a little song, and when they got to the end of the song, pop goes the weasel.
Box dated 1829 with a couple of painted panels on the front. A good piece. We like it.
We found that on Pawleys Island, and we wanted it, but we just had a car, and we had all three of our daughters in it, and it wasn't any way to get it home. So a guy said, well, I'll just wrap some string around it, and we'll take it down here to the bus stop. And so they took it down to a Greyhound bus, and they put it underneath the thing, and when we got home, it was there. And it was all tied up with the ropes that they make the hammocks, the Pawleys Island hammocks, out of.
It came out of a Turkish bakery, and as you can see, it's pine, and it's hand done, hand carved, which is what appeals to me. But what they would do is they'd take a wad of dough and throw it in each one of these, and you pierce the dough with something, and that's why the bottom is raised. And there's a nice cherry chest of drawers. One of the first things we bought when we got serious about being antiquers. And we found that out in Kansas somewhere. This town had a flood. This happened to be in the flood, and we didn't even know that those tile were there because it was so grimy and sand and stuff on, that we couldn't tell that those were tile. But and one of the finials was broken off, and it just needed a lot of help. And the foot went washed away, I guess. They
had no idea where the foot was, so it was just the head.
So we bought the head in the condition it was in for $15, and we decided that we liked it.
Well, let me ask you. Do you ever go to a place like Target or IKEA? You have these very squarish things with big bold colors, and you think, man, I just want a big red chair with yellow accents and just plop it right in the middle of my living room.
No.
Now it's time to cover all of Thursday's happenings from Resort Services. Then stay tuned for your menu choices and Village Church connections.
Hello everyone, I'm Leslie Brand and I'm here with Bev Chanley, and we're here with the happening segment of Shell Point TV, where we give you all the activities that are going on for today. At 7:15 we have a Health Connections, Bend, Breathe and Balance, and the Health Club. 8 o'clock is the Men's Golf Association at the Shell Point Golf Club. Also at 8 o'clock is the Round Robin Tennis at Tennis Courts. 9:15 we have a Life Quest Forum in the Social Center. Also at 9:15 is Shuffleboard at the Shuffleboard Courts. 9:30 current events in the game room at the Woodlands. Also at 9:30 is the Ladies Match Play at the Tennis Courts. The Paddlers Club will be at 9:30 in the Kayak Storage. And Samba will also be at 9:30 in the Sable Room at the Woodlands. 9:45 Introduction to Beginning Line Dancing will be in the Health Club. 10 o'clock, Susie Q's going out to Woody's for lunch. Sign up is required. 10:15, Basic Line Dancing at the Health Club on the island. And at 10:30, we have the Hurricane Seminar at the Village Church. Now here's Bev for the afternoon activities.
Thanks, Leslie. At 12:45, Mahjong will be played in the Library Lounge on the island. 1:15, the Butterfly Garden Committee meeting will be held at the Butterfly Gardens. At 1:30, we have a Health Connections class, Aqua Pilates Stretch. That will be at the Life Quest Aquatic Center. We're going to move to 2:15, where the computer club will be gathering in the Manatee Room. 2:45, we have Health Connections, Class Balance, and Mobility Training Level 2. They'll be down in the Health Club. That's currently full. And then we'll jump to 4 o'clock, where the seamstress will be here for her weekly service. She'll be in the Osprey Room. At 4:30, we have an Alcoholics Anonymous meeting. They gather in the Sable Room of the Woodlands. 6:30 is the time Pinochle will be played in the Library Lounge on the island. And we round out today with a 7 o'clock Trailblazers Bible study. They'll be in the Game Room of the Woodlands. We appreciate you tuning in today, and we'll see you back here tomorrow.
Menus for Thursday. In the Crystal Room, the Crystal Platter is Salisbury steak with mashed potatoes and carrots. The dinner special is the Crystal Carving Board for $12.95, and the soup of the day is potato leek. In the Island Cafe for lunch, the special is chicken parmesan with a side salad for $7.25. The dinner special is Thai night for $8.25. Dinner specials in the Palm Grill on Thursday are ribeye for $19.95 or salmon Wellington for $17.95. All menus are available 24 hours a day at www.shellpoint.net.
Hi, welcome to Village Church Connections. I'm Andy Hawkins, the senior pastor of the Village Church, and I'm here to talk about our special service on Good Friday. Over the course of church history, there's been some question and debate and wonder about even the name Good Friday. Not so much Friday, although there is some question about whether the crucifixion of Christ happened on Thursday or Friday, but that's a story for another day. But why call it good? As a matter of fact, as we look ahead to that service, we are looking at a number of events that are hard to describe as good. These are the events of the day of Jesus' crucifixion. He was arrested in the early morning hours of that crucifixion day, and he went through 2 trials. One was a religious trial before the Sanhedrin, the Jewish ruling council, and the question that was being addressed at that particular trial was whether or not Jesus was claiming to be the Son of God, whether he was in fact claiming deity for himself. Once that trial was established and completed, there was another trial that had to take place. The Jewish authorities wanted to have Jesus put to death, and they didn't have the authority to do that. Only the Romans could do that, so there had to be a civil trial. And in that particular case, the issue was a little different. It wasn't so much on religious grounds, but on civil grounds that he was tried. Was he in fact a king who might have competed in one way or another with the authority of the Roman authorities or the Roman king? Well, those 2 trials took place that led to a series of events which were astonishingly difficult, certainly for Jesus. First of all, he was denied by his friends, like Peter, who followed him into the courtyard and denied him among different people. He was rejected by a crowd of people. As a matter of fact, the same crowd that welcomed him into Jerusalem, shouting hosannas and delighting in his presence on Sunday, ended up rejecting him and calling for his crucifixion by the end of the week. He was then mocked by the soldiers who stripped him of his clothes, mocked him by putting a royal robe on him, putting a crown of thorns on his head, spitting at him, beating him. Lots were cast for his garments. He was crucified on a cross in the middle of 2 other criminals who deserved to be executed according to Roman law. There was the constant abuse by passers-by as they looked on at this public execution. And most importantly, he was forsaken by God. He cries out, my God, why have you forsaken me?" And whereupon he died physically. A number of significant events took place at the moment of his death, including the veil of the temple having been torn in 2, and an earthquake took place. Graves were opened, and people who had been formerly dead came to life. Astonishing things that could only be understood in light of the significance of this particular event. And then eventually he was buried. Now, with that litany of activities that took place on the day of crucifixion, we wonder why it's not called Bad Friday rather than Good Friday. Well, the reason why it's called Good Friday is all those things that took place accomplished the redemption of every human being who would ever believe in Jesus. That's the theological significance of the crucifixion day. The temple, the veil of the temple being torn in two gives access to God the Father through the death of Jesus Christ for all who would believe in him. The earthquakes with the graves being opened indicate the freedom from physical death that will ultimately take place in the final resurrection. The physical death really was only part of what Jesus experienced when he went to the crucifixion. There was a spiritual death in which he experienced the wrath of God, the genuine punishment for the sins of humanity that we're all guilty of, and that we all are genuinely worth receiving that spiritual death, that separation from the Father that is appropriate for those who have been cosmic rebels, in fact, disobedient to the things of God from our very beginning. And so Jesus, in his death, took upon himself that punishment so that we would not have to experience the wrath of God. That's why we call it Good Friday, and that's why we celebrate in a somber way and share communion together, remembering the death of Christ on our behalf. And so it's a special service. It's certainly one of the most meaningful services for Christians throughout the entire year. As we come into the Village Church Sanctuary at 10:15 on Friday, and we think about and contemplate and meditate upon the death of Jesus Christ on our behalf. It is a Good Friday because of what Jesus did for us, even though the events of that day are extraordinarily difficult for Jesus, in fact leading to his separation from the Father for a time in order to secure our salvation. We hope that you'll join us for this very special service, a time of remembering, a time of contemplating the death of Jesus on our behalf. Good Friday, 10:15 this Friday. See you there.
We're glad you joined us for today's show. Tune in tomorrow as we look into All About You, a chronic disease self-management program. Until then, this is Shell Point Today for Thursday, April 17th. I'm Rochelle Chernowski. From all of us here at Shell Point TV, we hope you have a great day, and we'll see you again tomorrow.